Hi, I'm Steve Garrett, and I want to talk to you about a very, very important part of the board of directors. And it has to do with financial controls. Financial controls are both policies and procedures. In some cases, Rotary clubs, Rotary districts, the financial controls are designated in the bylaws, which is the authorization by the members of the organization as to what the board of directors can do. But that's not normal. The normal is that it's the responsibility of the board of directors to create the policies of how finances will be controlled. And then it is the obligation of the club treasurer to create the procedures for financial controls. Now, one thing that seems to be a common belief among many in financial controls to have signatures, two signatures on a check. And this goes back a long time. But the reality is it's really not viable anymore. You see, at one time, a check would arrive at the bank, and the bank would either know the people that signed the check and know that the signatures were valid, or would go to a register and look at it and compare the check signatures. Listen, you can sign checks today, Mickey Mouse and his friend Donald Duck, and the bank's going to clear it because the check came in, and the computers don't really have a good way of checking that. So instead of having just two signatures on a check, I recommend that you get a standardized check request. And if somebody wants a check, they fill it out and they say who the check goes to and what purpose of the check and what account it's supposed to go to. And then they requires that you have two approvals on that standardized check request. And probably a good idea to have two approvals, not including the treasurer. So the club president and I don't know, the chairman of the committee that's spending the money has to sign the thing. And then the treasurer issues the check as the request says. And now you've got some documentation beside it. Another very viable idea is to get duplicate statements. So the treasurer gets a statement and the president gets a statement. Maybe even crazy enough, get 3 or 4 people on the board of directors to get copies of statements. Another thing that you can do is a fidelity bond. You can pay an insurance company to cover the risk of writing checks and paying bills. And that may be a viable idea. It's sometimes an expensive idea. Sometimes it's not that expensive. A good idea is to, or a bad idea, I guess. A good idea is to have a rotating treasurer. I irritate treasurers, and when we have one organization or one club I was involved in that had the same treasurer for 10 or 12 years, and new club presidents would come in and they'd say, what do you think, PDG? What should we be doing? I said, you ought to get a new treasurer. And he took it very personally. He said, you're trying to get me fired. No, it's a good idea to change treasurers every 2, 3, 4 years. But the other thing I would say is, I don't see a long line of people that want to do this job. It's a tedious job, but rotating treasurer is a very important thing. Businesses often will force the treasurer to go on vacation for 2 or 3 weeks and have somebody else do their job just as an assurance policy, just as a way to check on things. So rotating treasurer is a good idea. Something you can't avoid. You have to audit. Somebody has to audit. And the board of directors ought to have an audit committee, 2 or 3 knowledgeable people who go look at the finances and maybe periodic and random audits. I've been on an audit committee that would 3 or 4 times a year would walk into the business office, not a Rotary corporation, there's another corporation, a corporation handled millions of dollars, walk into the bookkeeping office and say, okay, let's see the books. And we find a check that was written and say, let's see the documentation behind this check. Let's see the check request. Let's see the invoices. Let's see everything that documents this check. And we would do that for 10 or 12 different checks. And I'm not so sure that what we did was so important except the people involved in finances knew that people from the board of directors were going to come in and take a look to see what was going on. So it's something I recommend. But the number one financial control you have to have is people ask questions. Yeah, the president asks questions. Yeah, the treasurer asks questions. You got a board meeting. Everybody asks questions. I was sitting in a board meeting. I was not a member of the board. I was there as a guest to talk about something else. And I think I told this someplace else in a sad tale. And they passed out the financial statements and, a motion to approve and accept the financial statements, and seconded. All in favor said, whoa, hold it, wait. Doesn't have anybody questions on this? There was something outstandingly wrong with the financial statements, but nobody asked a question. And that is the board of directors' job. Question things. If you don't understand it, ask. So those are some of the financial controls that I think are kind of important. And they're some of the financial controls that every board of directors should be following. So be good, responsible members of the board of directors. You are fiduciaries. It's not your money. It's somebody else's money. Take good care of it. Ask a lot of questions. Audit the financial statements. Get rotating treasurers. Do all the things we talked about. It just happens to be good, common sense financial controls.